Hey guys, it looks like it's a wrap to the 2023 season here, and I had a really good week last week. A couple of my buddies and I, we went up to Quebec for the first time I've ever been up there, and we did a trip. We dropped in at Rolfton on the Ontario side, which is Swisha, I believe is the name on the other side, right on the other side of the Ottawa River. This is between Ottawa and North Bay. And anyway, we went in there and we had a really good time. First time in Quebec, we were a little bit confused, and I've been asking questions and getting conflicting answers on Facebook about it. But we, like I said, dropped in at Swisha, brought our truck in, and we were told we had to stop at like a park office, because up in Quebec, you guys have, they call them ZECs, and someone explained what the acronym stands for. But an anglicized version, I guess, is that it stands for the park system. And each ZEC, you have to pay a permit to ride through. So I wasn't sure what was going on. We paid, I think it was pretty steep, $175 in that ballpark for a 3-day pass. That's what we are going to be in Quebec. Paid the $175. Dropped in at Swisha. We went to the park office, or the ZEC office, and the lady, I think, was more confused than we were. She wasn't sure. She said most people don't get them, but she said yes, by rights you do need it. But she also explained that right beside Swisha, you go over another bridge and you're into another ZEC like 3 kilometers. Mile and a half away. So you got to pay again, but that office isn't open. So you have to do it online. Well, we were all geared up and ready to go. We weren't going to go online and pay for this permit. And she wasn't really certain that we had to or not. So anyway, we unloaded there. We paid our, I don't know what it was, 10, 15 bucks, something like that for a ZEC pass. And she explained that as we were going, we told her where we were going to go. And she said, well, you're going to be driving through different ZECs, and by rights, you're supposed to have a permit. And I didn't know it. She said it was like $400 fine if we got stopped and checked out, but I was just going to plead ignorance because I was ignorant, and we paid for one anyway, so at least they knew we were in there. I don't understand why it's not like Ontario. You can get a park pass and just pay once, and it allows you into any provincial park, but things are different there, I guess. So anyway, we unloaded at the bottom of this trail, and last year the trail was snow covered, about 3 feet deep, and we went through that. And that's where I thought we'd be, right at the base of this road. I can't remember the name of the road, but just on the other side of the bridge at the office, we could park there. So we parked there, and we saw it looks like a logging road, and it had been graded, but on the side of the road, there's still room to ride up the side, so we thought we'd get in there. Unloaded, and our first trip was to Ville La Verendrye. And I hope I'm not screwing that name up too bad. Disrespect to the French. But that was where we're headed to. We'd made reservations, and I guess this was in the middle of nowhere, so we made our one-night reservation. We left from there. We had to go about maybe 2K, something like that, a mile and a half, up this gravel road till we got to the trailhead. It was a little bit of gravel, it wasn't too bad. We stayed in the side, and there was snow, a little bit of ice on the road, so it wasn't too bad for the runners, sliders. We got on the trail, and the first time we saw said 140K. So we thought we'd be okay. 140K to Ville La Verendrye, or not Ville, Pavillon La Verendrye. So 140K, we started riding. We saw a group right when we first started. This is forest riding, a lot of turns. And we saw a group when we first got in there, and that was it. And it was way off, it was way more. It ended up being 194K to the park, or to this Pavillon La Verendrye, which in essence is a little lodge, and right next to this river. And I guess the name responds to the name of the river area. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but that's the name of the place. We pulled in 194K. Luckily, my sled made it. I was riding my 2015 Viper. I had a 21 Ski-Doo, what size are they? 900R turbo with us, and an old Yamaha Nitro. So we had 4 strokes going through there. And we rode up through there, got to that place about 6 o'clock, because we got started late. Got there about 6 o'clock, and this place was beautiful. I wish I had the names, and I hope this somehow gets to them. This place was amazing. We paid for one night, and it included a meal. And they said that the meal was going to be in the fridge, and we threw it in the oven, and I was expecting a microwave meal for what we were described. Anyway, got there. First thing they did is they fueled us up with premium fuel and showed us the room. and showed us the food. Now inside the fridge was our food. And oh my goodness, this was pork chops, rice, vegetable, and a slice of pecan pie for dessert. This food was freaking amazing. I couldn't believe it. And this little cottage off the main lodge, because they only allow, the main lodge holds another, I don't know, say 15 guests, something like that. And it's only open on the weekends because they're short staffed. So there was us in the one little lodge separate from the main lodge. And then I think there was 3 or 4 guys on sleds that stayed in the main lodge. And what a beautiful little place we had. We had a fireplace. Hopefully I can inject some pictures here as to where we stayed at, but it had a fireplace, inside stove, we call fireplace stove, wood stove, and we got that going and the place was cooking, lots of heat. And this is off grid. So it was run by solar panels. I didn't hear a generator, but solar panels, and the power was fantastic. The TV was there. I don't know what they used. It wasn't really satellite per se. We got 3 channels, but that was all right. We weren't there to watch TV. But they had probably, oh my goodness, 4 feet of snow on the ground with drifts. It was amazing. Right on this river. I'm not sure the name of the river right there, but we stayed there and all the amenities. Oh, and also for breakfast, they had, there's 3 of us, and they had 3 slices, I believe it was, maybe 6. 6 slices of bacon, 6 sausages, 6 eggs, and toast, and butter, and jam, peanut butter, everything. I couldn't believe this place. It was amazing. I highly, highly recommend this place. I put a little, there's a Facebook group for the Ontario, Quebec sled riders and Trail Association. I don't know what the name of it is exactly. But anyway, I put a little story on with this loop that we did. And I can't believe this place. Unbelievable. Highly, highly recommend it. And I made a mistake in the morning. She might remember me because I broke the coffee pot while I was washing it in the sink. And she was so sweet. Very, very nice lady that was there, her and her husband. And I apologized, and no charge for that. Maybe gave her a little tip to help it out with it. But just super, super sweet people. Really, really nice. So anyway, that was Pavillon La Verendrye. And then we left from there heading to Ville Marie. And again, this is my first time in Quebec, first time riding in that area. The trails were like tabletops. Beautiful, beautiful trails. We went probably, after we saw that first group on the day, first day, we probably went 250K before we saw another person on the trails. And that was a groomer. Unbelievable. Just to give, let me explain something a little bit about that Pavillon La Verendrye. The owner said, because he thought there was a bit of a language barrier there yet, and he thought I was questioning the price of the gas, but I wasn't at all. You take what you can get. And he explained to me that he has to truck the gas in from the main highway 84 kilometers. I believe that's what it was, 84 kilometers. So what's that, like 50 miles? One way. So he has an old MTO truck with a plow on the front of it that he cleans that driveway up to the main road so he can get the fuel in to for the riders. So I didn't care what he paid for it. It was reasonable. Of course, you always pay more on the trails, but it was nothing outrageous. And unbelievable what he does for the sport and for his livelihood. So, and it takes him, he said, 8 hours to do that ride up to the main road. 8 hours to clean that trail. Unbelievable. So many great things to say about that little lodge. But anyway, we left there the next morning, thanked them, and we were heading to Ville Marie. Now, the nice thing about Ville Marie, it ended up being, the heck was it, 280K? I can't convert to miles, sorry about that. But 280K, but I think it was, we only maybe had to go just over 150 till we got to this little town called Belle Terre. And we were able to get gas there, and I think there was maybe even a couple places, but Belle Terre was easily reachable with the 4 strokes, because my Viper here, I found out later because the fuel light came on right around 190, so I was lucky to make it there. We strapped on some gas tanks. We stopped in Deep River and got some gas tanks from the local crappy tire and strapped them to the sleds, and maybe I'll throw a picture on there. But anyway, we did that ride, and again, beautiful, beautiful conditions. My only complaint is as we were riding, many times we had to stop at intersections because sometimes we ran into some logging roads and there was a few tracks and even a trailhead, and it wasn't very well marked. There was a couple times where we had to get out our Google Maps, and luckily it still worked, and just to get an idea as to where we were. And luckily we didn't make the wrong turn there. But we rolled into Ville Marie at about, I don't know, 6 o'clock, say. And we got into town. We were on the edge of town again. The snow started thinning up a little bit. We had a couple of dirt spots as it thinned around Ville Marie. And let me back up a little bit, sorry. Belle Terre, we stopped in there for fuel. They've got a little general store in there. It's a gas station general store. And it was neat because we didn't have to pay before we pumped their fuel. So that was new. Around here, because all thefts, you have to obviously pay first. But this was nice. You could fill up with fuel and pay afterwards. But we went to the local restaurants. There's two of them that showed restaurants, and they were both closed. And this is like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm not sure what that was all about. If they're even open ever, or if they've closed, I don't know. But there was no place to eat. So luckily, we went back to the general store, and they had some sandwiches. And actually, the sandwiches are really good. So they had some sandwiches and some other foods that you wanted. So you weren't stuck on that day for stopping for lunch. So that was good. We'd packed some sausages and things like that for the trail and drinks, but we were able to get a sandwich there. So that was good. Nice little town. Highly recommend stopping there at Belle Terre. So we rolled into Ville Marie at about 6 o'clock at night. Got into the edge of town. We'd never been there before again. And of course, we were staying at the Motel Louise, which is highly rated. And I still highly rate the actual location. But at the time of the season, because we went up, this was now, let's say, the second week of March. So the other areas, tons of snow, but Ville Marie, the snow was starting to thin out a little bit. And we rode probably a kilometer mile. On the shoulders, gravel, parking lots to get to Motel Louise, and they had to ride into the parking lot on the pavement. So that wasn't the greatest thing. The accessibility wasn't that great, but we made it there. And there was probably 10 to 15 other sleds in the parking lot that I had ridden on the pavement also, and ran into some really nice people. And if you're watching this video, I didn't get the couple's name, but ran into a really nice couple there. They're from, I think, Val d'Or, the area, somewhere up there. And really nice, spoke to them. He was riding a brand new Arctic Cat, Thundercat, and she was on, I believe, an old Ski-Doo, I think it was. Anyway, really, really nice couple, and shot the breeze of them there for a little while the next morning, because this place has got a nice restaurant attached to it. We ate dinner there that night, and then the next morning we had breakfast, and it was really nice, very reasonable, and people very friendly. And other sledders are always usually pretty good. Anyway, we met this couple from Val d'Or, and we talked stories, and I was amazed at how many kilometers they ride per year. But anyway, really nice people. We left there probably about 9 a.m. It was a big trip home because we had over 300K to get home. And this is where we were going to use our fuel that we'd strapped to the side of it. So from there, we rode, I think it was about 112 kilometers south to Temiscaming. And now we're on sleds, right? And I know hindsight 2020, and there's the Ottawa River separating Ontario and Quebec, and we're right close to the, like, a couple of kilometers from the Ontario border. So I had no idea where we were really at. And Temiscaming, I always thought was an Ontario town. Ignorant. Anyway, I pulled into town, beautiful little town, and we stopped for lunch there, got fuel, and stopped for lunch and went into the restaurant. And I made just a comment asking what language they spoke, because predominantly French, obviously, in Quebec. And she corrected me very quickly that they're in Quebec and they speak French. So I wasn't being insulted. I think I may have insulted her, and I apologize. I didn't mean to insult you. I was just asking a question because I thought we were still in Ontario, and I was surprised because I know in Ontario we sometimes speak French. But I felt like I offended her, and that was the last intention I had, was to offend you. I was really enjoying riding in your province. And it's, like I said, it's almost like going to the States. You're in another province, in the same country, but with the very, very different culture. And I found it very interesting, and did my best with my grade 7 French that I had to say a few things. But anyway, people were nice considering, but I felt like they were easily insulted if I questioned the language differences, and I didn't mean it at all. And I apologize if it came off that way. But anyway, very nice. We had a good dinner in town. I can't remember the name of the restaurant. It's probably better I don't say it. But that was in Temiscaming. It was a really neat little town. Well signed mostly as to where the fuel was, where the restaurants were, and what have you. But they could be better. But we figured it out. Again, thank goodness for Google Maps. Got that figured out. Had to do a little walk to the restaurant. It wasn't a big deal. But it was a good time. And Temiscaming, now we fueled up there, and our last shot was 220K, and that was the last stop between there back to our vehicle in Swisha. And this is where we needed those tanks. But let me describe this. Up until we got to Temiscaming, the trails were a combination of some high-speed areas, but mostly going through bush forest trails. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'll show you, hopefully I can superimpose here. I'll show some tracks. I don't know what they were. You could see the claws. You guys can maybe tell me what they were, because I know between a wolf and a cat, one of them, the claws retract. I could probably Google and figure it out. But anyway, I'm sure a lot of people, you guys will recognize what they were. But it was the tracks, they followed the trail for a long ways. And anyway, we went along. And there was warming shacks. Let me add that. Warming shacks along the way that we could have stopped at. But there was hardly anybody at all on the trails. Very, very, very few people. I would say, because we put on about 800K, we passed maybe 5 to 10 sleds. That's it. There was not many people on this trail system at all. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, when we left from Ville Marie heading to Temiscaming and continuing south, these tracks were like riding on the Autobahn. They were smooth, they were wide, gradual turns. You could easily wide open on these tracks. It was amazing. At one point, we didn't stop. We put on 100K without stopping. I don't know, maybe you guys ride that all the time, but me, that's a big trip for me. I like to stop. But we put on a quick 100K, so 60 miles without stopping. And that was quite easily done. I was ready for a stop, but it was pretty easy when you're going at those speeds. So we did really, really well in that time. And I got to about 195K on my Viper, and the fuel light came on. And I had a 10-liter, I think it was 10-liter, strapped on the side of it, so I dumped it in. The turbo, the Ski-Doo turbo, though, it made it, no problem. It ended up being, we went about 230K that final stretch, and the turbo made it. The Nitro's got a smaller tank. He'd stopped earlier. I think he gets maybe 180K out of his. And then he added fuel, I added fuel, and the Ski-Doo made it. So that was good. But we had the fuel with us just in case. But you're a long ways from anyone. And it is funny, every time we shut off, because there's just gorgeous, gorgeous scenery everywhere along there. But every time we shut that machine off, I was always like holding my breath to fire it up, to make sure it was fired up, because you're a long ways from anyone around. And we got back around 6 o'clock at night, made a huge mistake. We got off the trailhead, and I thought we were at the same spot as where we'd entered, but somehow we ended up about 15K further up the trail. And I jumped on that logging road, and we all jumped on the log road, thinking that it was only a couple K. It was rough and icy and stone gravel. I tried riding off the best on I could, but it wasn't working, and we were going farther and farther and farther. Ended up, I'll bet you it was 10 to 15K. We rode on that freaking gravel trail, logging road, before we got to our vehicle. Somehow, I guess we missed the final. There should have been another 10 kilometers of trail that would have brought us down to that same spot. Somehow we missed it. But anyway, I posted on that Ontario Trail system about that loop. It's fantastic. In Ontario, we have what's called the Wrap Tour, which goes around Algonquin Park. I recommend this one just as nice. The only thing is you don't have as many choices to stop along the way. You got to make sure you pack fuel with it. But the scenery is second to none. I'll show a couple of, maybe I'll throw a video in here of the one just gorgeous, gorgeous waterfalls that we went through. I say more like rapids, combination rapids and waterfalls. Beautiful area. Just gorgeous, gorgeous scenery. It's why we all like to ride so much. So anyway, that's it. I wanted to add this. I think we're done for 22 or 23, I guess, for now. But what I wanted to add is the Viper back here ran fantastic. We had 3 4-strokes, and they ran really, really well. Pretty good on fuel. But I'll show you. Luckily, thank goodness, we brought our tow strap with us, and because we needed it several times. And I'll put a couple pictures in here maybe of where we used it at. But what I'm going to comment now is I'm kind of scared, excited, cautiously optimistic. I've decided I snow checked a 24 Polaris VR1. I'm going to the 2-stroke. I don't know if you watched my last video, but I'm fairly new to the market. I had some old Artie Cats, but this was my first newer sled. It's a 2015 Viper, and thing runs fantastic, smooth, wonderful, wonderful riding sled, but it's heavy, and I got stuck twice with it, overshot corners going too fast. My own stupidity, but it happened, and once you get off the trails up there, you're stuck. This thing just dropped like a rock, and like I said, without that toe strap, we'd have been screwed. So on the trails, it's a great sled, just don't get off the trails. So this is why I'm looking forward to this 24 VR1, because it's light. I'm looking forward to that. I like the two-stroke power, so I'm trying that. I'm looking forward to it. The only thing that scares me, and I've been Googling it, trying to figure it out, and you guys can add in your comments below, is the reliability. This thing's got 15,000 kilometers on it, and I would take it again tomorrow on a trail like that because it runs so well. You hear stories of guys that, I don't know what the rumor is, you say 100,000, no problem. I don't know. I don't have that. I think I've seen where people have got 30K on it, but I just don't know if, not because they can't make it, I just don't know if guys have ridden that far on them. So it'd be interesting if you got something below, right below in your comments, how many K you got on your four-stroke. Because this is an incredible engine. Jeez, it runs well. It runs really well. I really like it. And kudos to, I'll put a shout out here to Bill Moore and Stingray Mods. I put in their clutch this year and their center spring, and it works really well. And what I really like is the snow trackers I put in. That really helped for the handling. Down the trails, you can literally go around things quite easily. I don't know what the new one's gonna be like. I'm thinking I'm gonna put the snow trackers on the Polaris as soon as it comes in, probably. But we'll see. I'm anxious. I got a sled. Sometimes I wish I could just be a little more content. I got a sled that's paid for, and I'm going into a $25,000 Polaris. I couldn't afford that bump in the turbo. Now, the tax is out the door. I'm about 25, and that thing was 30 out the door, and I just couldn't justify that other 5,000. I'm retired now, so I don't have that disposable income like I used to. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. I've been looking to see. I don't know. I'm new to this. I'm ignorant to this, and maybe you guys can answer this. Can you rebuild them like a dirt bike? They say that the two strokes it's inevitable. You're gonna have to rebuild them. So are they easy to rebuild? I wouldn't want to rebuild a four-stroke with the overhead cams. I've taken one apart, and it's not something you do in your garage here. So I don't know. Maybe to rebuild them, they're not too bad. But I just wonder, because it sounds like 10,000 miles is maximum if you can make it before you're rebuilding them. Maybe the rebuilds aren't that expensive. I don't know. This is all new area for me, so I'm cautiously optimistic to it, but I think it should. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a new sled. I was really disappointed that Yamaha didn't really come out with new colors, I guess. That's about it. I guess the saying is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it's always nice as a consumer to have something new. But Yamaha really didn't come out with a whole lot of new things other than colors this year, which I was surprised. But anyway, it's going to be a huge change with the Polaris. I'm looking forward to that 7S display. I think it's going to be interesting. I like how they have the GPS in it instead of having to stop all the time and pull my phone out and look at my phone. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know. Time will see. And I'll share it with you guys as soon as it comes in. The new thing. This is March 23, and the thing when I snow checked it is they're guaranteed that'll be shipped from the factory, so not arrival, but shipped from the factory, I think is by November 30th, which hopefully one would think that's lots of time to get here. Our season down here, I'm in Ontario, doesn't start, Northern Ontario. I'm in Southern Ontario. Northern Ontario doesn't start until January anyway. I think my first ride was the second week of January this year. So we'll see. Hopefully it's in for my first ride, and then I'll get this one on the market. But in a perfect world, I'd keep this. I'd love to have it as a nice second sled to maybe my kids. I have a couple of son-in-laws or friends that if they don't have a sled, that we can go for a rip. But that's it. That's my mind. It's been, holy cow, 24 minutes of mumbling about this. Hopefully I haven't bored you if you're still here. But that's a day in my life, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, I just wanted to explain about my trip to Quebec. It was a great time and highly recommend it. Anyone that hasn't been there, and I wanted to let you know that this is what I'm looking at. Looking at a new sled, a new two-stroke, and I'll share it with you. Be safe, guys. Enjoy the summer.